So we are going to talk individually about Zinzino products and the uniqueness of them and why we in Zinzino are so excited to spread the news, to get around the world and let absolutely everybody know why they need to hear about Zinzino, whether they become customers or partners. It doesn't matter. We just need to make that impact and change people's lives. So we're going to talk about first the balance oil and the science behind that. We're going to talk about the xenobiotic. We are going to talk about Extend. We're going to talk about Viva. And lastly, we will talk about the skin serum. So those are the products that we are going to discuss today. So I hope you have your pen, paper ready to take notes. And I know because we are here in the room ready to take notes also. So to bring him on, most people who have been partners know if they know one name of Zinzino, they know his name. He's our senior scientific advisor in Zinzino, written many books, and has a fantastic blog that just shows how passionate he really is about world health. That blog is drpaulclayton.eu. You need to check that out and send it to everybody you know, or get one of his books. And those in the room here can get them right here. He's been in so many different committees now and doing different things, but he is here. He's been creating these products, and we are so grateful for him. So I want to give a huge, warm Zinzino welcome to Dr. Paul Clayton. Hey, Dr. Paul.
Hey, Carla, good to see you again. It's been so long, and good to see everybody else too.
I know it's been, we were just doing different meetings throughout this weekend here, but Dr. Paul, we are going to go through each of these products. And actually, to me, each one of them is extremely unique. The first one we're going to talk about is the balance oil. And it's something that we can test. So I'm going to leave it to you to talk about what makes balance oil unique. Dr. Paul?
Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to show any slides. Let's just free form this. We'll have a conversation.
So let's talk the test and balance oil. Why is that unique?
Well, first of all, I would put the question back to you. Why would anyone in their right mind drink fish oil?
That's a good
And the
question.
reason, well, I mean, why? Why would you bother to do it? Because it doesn't taste that great. I mean, we've tinkered around with it until it tastes okay, but it's still not delicious. And why would anyone take it? Because all the evidence suggests that when you drink fish oil, it does you no good at all. It doesn't really reduce risk of cardiovascular disease or neurological disease or cancer or anything. Not me speaking, that's the Cochrane collaboration. And not only that, but when you drink fish oil, it looks as if, because these products, frankly, are so badly formulated, these very delicate omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids break down in the body and they form compounds like malondialdehyde and nonanols and hexanols and compounds like that. And if they don't sound good, well, that's
About
pretty
10 minutes per
appropriate because
product
they
is going
certainly
to be
don't
our
do you any good.
goal,
They
10,
increase
12
the
minutes
risk
per
of atrial
product. So
fibrillation. We've got data, pretty good data that shows that. And more recently, some very new data, fresh out of China, good data, suggests that drinking fish oil increases your risk of lung cancer as well. And that's because these products are so badly formulated. Now, when you eat fish, that doesn't have any negative effects on your health at all. In fact, it's all good, all of it. So there's a big gap here somehow. And for anyone who is interested in this kind of thing, this difference between oily fish, good, fish oil, bad, that is enough to trigger acute cognitive dissonance. You begin to think, well, how are both of these things possible? And they're both possible because they're not the same thing. Oily fish is not fish oil. Commercial fish oil is a poor excuse for oily fish because when the scientists first started looking at this, a couple of Danish physiologists called Bang and Duerberg, they were looking at the Inuit in Greenland who were eating a lot of oily fish. Actually, not so much oily fish. They only run for a couple of weeks every year. They were eating mostly marine mammals. China was not cool. They were eating seals and walruses and stuff like that. They had lots of omega-3s in their blood and very little degenerative disease. So these two Danes thought, well, it must be the omega-3s. And they were half right, but totally wrong. Because what it is in these marine foods that protect you is the omega-3s and the polyphenols. It's a binary weapon. You strip them out, polyphenols out, you're left with just the omega-3s. They don't do you any good at all. And as I said, they're likely to harm you. So the fish oil industry got it all wrong because they were still thinking like a pharmaceutical company. They thought, oh, it's got to be one molecule, got to be specific. And they developed this huge billion-dollar fish oil market, which is a complete confidence trick. They don't help anybody. They're killing people. They should be put out of business with extreme prejudice. We took a different tack. We kind of went back to basics. And because we have origins in Scandinavia, we were aware of the work of some very, very good scientists at the Arctic University. And they had been looking at weird combinations of fish oil and olive oil, actually seal oil and olive oil. And they were generating results in their preclinical models that nobody had seen before. They thought, well, why? What have they done here? I actually spoke to some of them, and they said, well, we had this idea where we were combining the Inuit diet and the Mediterranean diet. And they kind of stumbled onto it. It was a serendipitous discovery. But I got to give them credit for it. They realized that they had something new, that 2 and 2 came out as much more than 4, coming out as 22. And it turned out that when you combined not the oleic acid and olive oil, but the polyphenols, they're a bit like the polyphenols that you find in the marine food webs, you reconstitute all of the biological benefits of the whole fish. So now you have an anti-inflammatory combination that is extremely powerful. In fact, it's about as powerful, this is for the medics, as the glucocorticoids. And that's about as powerful suppression of chronic inflammation as you can get, but without the adverse effects associated with these steroid molecules. Anyway, this was still happening a little bit out there in academia, the industry, and the world in general hadn't picked up on this until some Italian scientists at the University of Rome, Professor Bruno Bere, and some of his colleagues developed a dried blood spot test, which meant that you didn't have to go into the lab or the clinic and have your blood drawn. If you wanted to test for your lipid profile, you could just stick a little microscopic little needle into your finger at home, drop a couple of drops of blood onto a piece of filter paper, dry it, seal it up, send it off to a third party, independent forensic analytical laboratory. We use VTest. And a couple of weeks later, you could go online and get your results. So now for the first time, we had an effector and a sensor or a test. So you have a complete feedback loop. Do the test at home, see if there's a problem. If there isn't, congratulations. You're living a righteous lifestyle. You're eating lots of oily fish. You have the right lipid profile. And guess what? You're not at risk of chronic inflammatory stress. Go home. Don't bother us anymore. And by the way, here's your money back. We'll pay you for the money that you spent on the test. Not many people are like that. A few, right up in the top of Northwest Europe, where they eat a lot of cold water oily fish. I mean, back in the days of the Hanseatic League, and you have to know a little bit about history here, herrings were so widely consumed that they were actually the unit of currency in that particular time. Stuart knows all about this, Stuart, because he's dug into the history. Not many people know that. So these folk are eating a lot of oily fish, and they have pretty good profiles. And guess what? They don't get much chronic inflammation or very little chronic degenerative disease. But they're a very small minority. In most of the rest of the world, thanks to the way in which our diet has degraded, it's been industrialized. Most people now have very high ratios of 6 to 3 in their blood, very low levels of 3. So you have a low 3 index, which means you are very prone to chronic inflammatory stress. And as chronic inflammatory stress, it's a complex process, leads eventually to the slow destruction of the extracellular matrix, which leads to the disorganization and then destruction and loss of healthy tissue. And this is a process which is at the core of most degenerative diseases. If you have chronic inflammatory stress, you're going to become ill eventually. You will start losing cartilage. You'll move towards osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis. You'll lose bone mineral density. You'll move towards osteoporosis. You'll chew holes in the linings of your arteries. You'll develop hypertension, coronary artery disease, dementia, all of the diseases of modern life.
So
So,
fish has been that important to everybody that we've all needed this much fish? And
no,
none of the fish oils.
absolutely not. Absolutely not, because if you're eating a traditional diet, there are enough parent omega-3s and omega-6s in basic plant foods and the basic produce and the fish, the foods you could fish or farm or hunt. In that kind of traditional diet, you'll have the right ratios of parent omega-6s and 3s so you can make enough of your own omega-6 and omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acids and maintain good cellular membrane chemistry and good inflammatory status that way. You can still mount an acute inflammatory response, which you need to do in response to pathogens or physical trauma, but you won't develop chronic inflammation. And so you will not develop a chronic degenerative disease unless you have a very, very strong genetic risk factor. So to come back to balance oil, what we do is we reconstitute oily fish. We put the polyphenols back into the fish oil. And now you have a combination. You've got the omega-3s and the polyphenols. The polyphenols do two things. They put the omega-3s into the cell membranes where they are required, and they complement the omega-3s anti-inflammatory effects. So for the first time, what we have is a combination which drags nutrition and supplements into life science and medicine because we have the test, we have numbers, we can show you and your doctor you have a good lipid profile and you're probably not very much at risk. Alternatively, you do the test and you see, like most people, you have bad numbers. And we can say to the doctor, we can say to you, if you're a doctor, you have a problem here, which will over time become manifest as a clinical condition. And if you take balance oil, you can watch those numbers change. And as they change, your symptoms of inflammation will decrease and your underlying morbidity, the underlying health problem will start to heal.
So Dr.
So,
Paul, when we're talking
Mhm.
about our test, why is it so many doctors are not recommending this as one of the key things that they're doing? Why are
because
doctors?
it's not taught at medical schools, and the curricula at medical schools are hugely influenced by the companies which pour money into funding those schools, and many of them involve sums of pharmaceutical money. Do you really think the pharmaceutical industry is interested in destroying itself? Because that's what will happen. If we can reduce the frequency of chronic degenerative disease by 90%, and that's what the data shows, the pharmaceutical industry in its current form is dead. And a good thing too, in my view.
Okay. Well, I hope you can hear the
However,
behind it. Okay.
However, I don't mean to sound unduly critical of doctors. There's plenty of good doctors who have the interest of their patients at heart, who genuinely want to help them, who are more than aware of the limitations, shortcomings, and problems associated with a pharmacocentric approach to medicine. Once they have looked at our data, once they've understood our science, they welcome us with open arms. And we are now working, as you know, Carla, with very senior medical personnel in over 100 countries. Nutrition
Absolutely.
is coming of age. We're not out in the cold. We're not in the fringes anymore. We're beginning to occupy center stage.
I love it. I love it. The rest of us are loving it over here too. Okay, so we know that the balance oil is not a fish oil. It is unique for that, and we can prove that with our test. So
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we
absolutely.
see
Now,
routinely people who take fish oil, ordinary fish oil, and they have terrible test results because that doesn't get the omega-3s to the right place. And you're producing these really dangerous breakdown products in the body. Balance oil reaches the part that ordinary fish oils don't reach. They get into the cell membranes, they switch off the inflammatory sequence, and at that point, the body's ability to heal and regenerate comes to the fore, and medical miracles happen.
I love it. Absolutely. Okay, I did have a question on this where people were asking, okay, well, in regards to our balance oil, Is there anything in regards to where we're storing it, how long it can be open, things that we have to be careful about? The hot or the cold, or any of the balanced products, whether it's Ascent or Aqua X or any of that?
Well, ordinary fish oils are notoriously unstable and they have a short shelf life and they go rancid. It doesn't really matter very much. I mean, by storing them in the refrigerator, you'll extend the shelf life a little, but they still go off pretty quickly because they use the wrong antioxidants, which are not really chaperone compounds at all. They use deascorbyl succinate, which is a version of vitamin C. They use d-alpha tocopherol, and this is not the right. These are not the right antioxidants. That's not what works in nature. And to me, it's a mystery why the fish oil companies use these products because really they know better, or they should know better. And I've spoken to the CEOs of some of the big fish oil companies, and I've said, look, there's a problem here. Your products don't work, and they're actually harming people. And they said, well, we know that, but it's a good business, and it's a really good business.
What?
We're talking about billions of dollars. Okay, so you know what? I got onto my favorite hobby horse. Remind me, what was the question?
Okay, so we're looking at like the how long shelf life it has.
Oh, shelf life, shelf life, shelf
Shelf
life.
life,
Okay.
or when it's
Yeah,
open.
yeah.
Because I
Well,
know
it's
we put
not.
ours in the fridge. I learned the hard way, Dr. Paul, that you got to put it in the fridge.
Well, if it's traditional fish oil, yes. If you're using balance oil, it's not quite so critical because by using the right chaperones, you extend the shelf life considerably. Now, there's a TV program, I think it's called Eating History. Maybe some of you have seen it. And it consists largely of these two or rather eccentric self-publicists who make programs about eating chef food that is years and decades beyond its shelf life. And they talk about how it tastes, and I think they earn their money. I think they're eating a lot of terrible food. Um, and just by accident, I left a bunch of bottles of balance oil um, in a bag on a shelf out in the open in a place where I had been staying in Central France. And the windows aren't double glazed. There's no central heating, and I left it there for 4 years. I'd forgotten all about it. There were other things in the bag too, which were more personally interesting, including a kilt, which I'm allowed to wear because I'm partly Scottish. I'm partly everything. So I came back 4 years later, and I'd just seen this program about people eating out of date food, and I thought, I wonder if this is still drinkable because it had been through hot and cold cycles 4 different years. And I opened one bottle and took a sniff very cautiously. And if you've ever eaten or drunk rancid fish oil, you won't forget that experience. It's bad. It's really bad. And I didn't smell any rancidity. And very gingerly, I took a couple of drops of it, and it tasted okay. And I thought, wow, this doesn't seem to have gone off at all. And I took a slug of it, and I still could not detect any rancidity whatsoever. So I drank that bottle and then the next one, and then retested myself. And my blood readings were still in the same place they were when I started. So by putting the natural chaperones back into the oil, I'm no longer sure what the shelf life really is. We can take a cue from what happens in the oceans. The fish don't make these fish oils. It's the algae, the marine algae at the bottom of the marine food systems that produce the omega-3s. And they also produce the polyphenols that keep them sweet. Now, consider how those omega-3s transit through the food webs. They travel through 4, 5, 6 trophic levels before they reach the apex predator. So they go through the gut and then the tissues of the krill, the gut and the tissues of pelagic fish, the larger fish, the marine mammals, and then maybe the apex predator. And that's a journey that can take 12 months or more. Maybe it could be 2, 3 years for all we know, maybe even longer. And yet the omega-3s arrive at their endpoint intact. By combining them with the right chaperones, these polyphenols, which cling very tightly to the omega-3s and afford them a degree of antioxidant protection that no other antioxidant can do, the shelf life just stretches out for years. Now, I'm not recommending to anyone that you leave your bottle of fish oil open on the counter in the warm and just let it go. I mean, I think that would be irresponsible. I don't know how. I don't think I could guarantee that in 6 months' time that oil would still be sweet. I recommend that you use the bottles promptly. You keep stored in the cold. That's, I think, just generally a conservative attitude to take. But in reality, I do think, from my experience, the oil seems to be considerably more robust than that. And unlike any other fish oil.
Well, then that
Could I
answers
just
that
say,
question.
could I just say, Carla, that some
Yep.
doctors have said, well, this isn't fish oil, it's snake oil. And to that, I have a very simple response. Snake oil is traditionally used in the Far East as an anti-inflammatory. Now, not just any snake, they use sea snake oil. Now, gathering sea snakes is a hazardous occupation because those are venomous critters, but they know how to do it. You take the snake and then you put it through a mangle, you squeeze out the oil, and it's put into storage, and it is a very powerful anti-inflammatory compound because those sea snakes are in the marine food webs. They contain the omega-3s and the polyphenols, which is what we have in balance oil. What then happened was, the hucksters in the United States, looking to make a quick buck, started squeezing oil out of rattlesnakes and copperheads and all those kinds of snakes, which contain no omega-3s or polyphenols whatsoever. And snake oil salesman became a pejorative term because clearly that junk doesn't work. But the original sea snake oil does. What we're selling effectively is the real deal, real snake oil, except it's fish oil.
Dr. Paul, that was a good analogy. It's funny. I don't think I'm going to use it because I don't want to get people started thinking that we've got snake oil. But yes, okay, absolutely love that.
I don't know. I'm seeing a rebranding opportunity here.
Let's grab that opportunity. Why not? Why not? Okay, well, we've got balance oil. We know that it is working. We can see it with the test. And anybody who is in doubt about anything, just take the test and find out. It's the independent lab. It's not us. It's take that test and let's just start testing everybody. Okay, so let's move on to our fantastic xenobiotic. And you mentioned something here not too long ago when we were talking gut health that we just don't talk enough of xenobiotic. I don't think people realize, I just asked you recently, I said, what's more important, balance oil or xenobiotic? And you said, they're the same. You need them both. Why?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we all ate a really healthy and traditional diet, you wouldn't eat any of them. But the modern diet is degraded in a number of very key ways. The omega-3s have gone, the polyphenols have gone, and the fibers have gone. So a little bit of history. If you go back to about the 2 millennia or so, we've identified cultures which were consuming well in excess of 100 grams of prebiotic fiber a day. We think they were really healthy because they had what we call a saccharolytic anti-inflammatory microbiota. So in other words, they had a population of microbes inside their intestines, which was absolutely supporting, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, cardioprotective, really good. But we don't know for sure because, 2000 years ago, they didn't keep great medical records. So let's come closer to the present date. And I'm going to the second half of the 19th century, which is a blue zone, known as the mid-Victorian era. And they weren't eating quite so much fiber, maybe 30 to 40 grams a day. And we know that in that population, there was no IBS, no IBD that we could see. And colorectal cancer was so rare that the doctors of the day, even without genetic screening, could tell exactly who was at risk because they knew it ran in families. You can't even see that anymore because everyone gets it. Our diet is so terrible. So it turns out that fiber is so important. Hippocrates, I think, the old man, he put it really well. He said all disease starts in the intestines, and he wasn't completely right, but he was right to a large extent because what happens down there in the gut, your microbiota has a huge impact, not just on intestinal health, but on the health of your cardiovascular system, on the central nervous system, the immune system, the musculoskeletal system, your liver, your kidneys. It's every bit as important as balance oil, clearly as important. It's like you asking me if I've got a three-legged stool, which is the most important leg. There isn't one. They're all equally important. Xenobiotic is just as important as balance oil. And There's lots of fiber products around. In the North America, I think the big one is called Metamucil. Correct me if I'm wrong. And honestly, you're just wasting your time, your money. There's no point in taking that whatsoever. It's got a lot of marketing behind it, which is why people eat it, but it won't really improve your health in any significant way at all. It's a terrible formulation. What you have to do is to repopulate or rewild the intestine. Or rewilding is this idea of restoring original species back into the environment. And when you do that, the environment itself starts to blossom. By putting the fibers back into the diet, where they always used to be until they were removed, you're encouraging the growth of a much more traditional and much healthier microbial population. It becomes more diverse. Instead of being inflammatory and carcinogenic and chemotoxic, it becomes anti-inflammatory. It supports the normal functioning of your immune system, your cardiovascular system, and everything else. The health benefits that spiral off from this are many. They're diverse and they're important. So, unlike balance oil, we can't test before or after, except now we can. Once again, we have numbers. Once again, we're dragging nutrition in from the wild territories out there into the realms of life science and into the medical camp, because we now have a little very simple test, blood spot test like the balance test, which you can use. You can take it home in the security and safety of your own kitchen or dining room or sitting room or wherever. Send it off as before, just as with the balance test. And in a couple of weeks, go online, you get your results, and that will tell you whether you have a healthy microbiota or an unhealthy one. Now, it used to be that in order to know what was going on in the microbiome, you had to take a sample of the stool, the fecal material, and take that into a clinic. And you had to send it, you had to deliver it personally to the clinic, because, the mail services don't really appreciate it when you send that sort of thing, through the mail. I can't imagine why. So we had to make something that was more convenient, more decentralized, um, and more meaningful, because frankly, those microbial analyses are not very helpful. What it all comes down to is the integrity of the colonic epithelial barrier. Because you've got this very complex population of microbes in the intestine, they're producing a whole range of compounds, metabolites, cell wall compounds, and some of these are extremely bad for you. It's very important to keep them inside the gut, where they can't get at you and cause harm in the liver, the blood system, and elsewhere. And in order to do that, we have this epithelium, which lines the intestine, which is designed to be impervious to many of these compounds, keeping them from entering the blood system. If you have the wrong microbiota because you stopped eating fiber, this epithelial barrier starts to break down and various toxins can enter the blood. And what we can do is we can measure not what's going on in the different population of bacteria or microbes, because they change all the time anyway. We can measure the epithelial function by measuring 3 different analytes. And the balance between them, the ratios between them, tell us a great deal about whether your microbiota is sabotaging your health or supporting it. Once again, we will have numbers. We will validate this test. We will share it with the medical profession. And unlike the balance test, which we bought off the peg, as it were, this has been developed in-house. It is our technology. And the entire medical profession, once they become aware of this test, is going to want to use it, considering how important it is. You're muted, Carla.
Yeah, just want to know if, when we're testing balance, we can see that 97% of the world is failing that test. How would you guess this new microbiome test? What percentage of the population are you expecting to be out of balance?
Carla, I hate guessing. I really want to know the facts.
You're the scientist of facts. I know. Do you think it's half of the people that are out of balance, or do you think there'll be more?
I think it's regional, because clearly there are parts of the world where people consume far more fiber than we do in the West. So if you look at rates of colorectal cancer, which are kind of a rough gauge to this, you see that they are very much lower in parts of Africa where there are no ultra-processed foods, where people are eating lots of fiber, than they are in the West. So in answer to your question, it's a regional thing. I would say that given what I know of fiber consumption patterns, I would think that North America is probably the worst, with most of Western Europe coming up behind, in second place.
Okay, that makes sense. So, and you also said that balance oil and xenobiotic, they're working together. So people should be taking both of them.
They do work together because balance soil is damping chronic inflammatory stress in all the body apart from in the large intestine. By taking xenobiotic, you switch off chronic inflammatory stress in the large intestine, you restore the functioning of this epithelial barrier, and you stop the leaching of inflammatory toxins from the gut into the bloodstream. So it confers an additional anti-inflammatory benefit and really amplifies all of the benefits that balanced soil can bring. But it's doing all these other things as well. It's normalizing the situation inside the intestine, and through various connections that gut has with other tissues, it's directly improving certain aspects of brain function and brain health. And it's having very distinct and positive impacts on your immune system, which balanced soil doesn't affect in the same way. So it's an additional, it's a complementary, it's a synergistic combination of health benefits.
Okay, so we're going to be able to test those things, both of them, and really make an impact when people switch over to taking both of them. So let's add.
Absolutely.
Okay, but the microbiome, they affect brain health, they affect skin health, all of this all ties together. So it's actually a great anti-aging combination to be using also.
And you know what? It's also going to make you more sociable and more popular. What microbes have a huge impact on our psychology. By changing your microbiome, you're producing good microbes that have an environment, a genetic program. They want to divide the world. They want to multiply. They want to spread. And by having the right microbiota, it just makes you happier and more willing to socialize. I mean, there's quite good data to support this. There are some microbes that actually are going to make it more likely that you'll fall in love. They produce oxytocin. And this comes down to something that this also has a knock-on effect when it comes to something called gut feeling. Now, when you meet someone for the first time, sometimes you think, this is an interesting and attractive person. Other times, something about them makes your skin crawl. What's going on there? Is this something that we are actually noticing for ourselves? Now, there are some scientists in Hong Kong who I've been communicating with who have this really weird, this wacky idea that what is happening is, depending on your microbiota, they're producing volatile compounds all the time. You're giving off into the space around you a complex cocktail of compounds being produced by your microbes. And you might not be able to smell this on another person, but the microbes on your skin are producing these compounds. And if someone else comes close to you, they're giving off these messages as well. And if you're incompatible, if they have the wrong microbiota, the microbes on your skin sense that. They're picking up on those compounds, and they send a message to other parts of the body saying, hey, this is not the right person for you to be with. This is a creep. This is a bad person. Stay away. I don't exactly know how true this is, but you got to admit, it's a fun theory.
Oh, okay.
And there is some evidence for
it. So you're kind of saying that this intuition is something that is, even though intuition doesn't sound very scientific, but when you feel it in your gut, that it
Yes,
matters.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, because we know that the microbes on your skin have ways of communicating with the microbes in your gut. And you say you have a gut feeling about someone. And that's how we think this might be happening.
Okay, well, I like it. Okay, so let's go on. We know how important they are, both of them, and we're not going to pick one that's more important than the other. People need to be taking both. But now let's go on to Extend. Extend is I mean, it's a multivitamin.
No, it isn't.
Okay. That's why I led you into that. Okay, explain, Dr. Paul.
Okay, what are the big multivitamins like Centrum Silver or whatever? And they're complete junk. All the studies, and there's been plenty, show that these have no effect on your health or your mortality patterns whatsoever because they're so grotesquely incomplete. That's like, taking your car into the garage and you say, well, fill her up with gas, but forget about the oil, forget about the hydraulics, forget about everything else. That doesn't matter. In order to make that car run better, you need a lot of, or if you picked up a rusty old scrap heap, for example, that's a better equivalent to the way most people are today. They need tuning up in almost every system. They need a lot of care and maintenance and repairs. There is a short list of vitamins at the moment, and if you know your history of medicine, that list in the past was rather longer, and at times it's been shorter. It changes. New candidates emerge, and sometimes old candidates disappear, depending on how the science develops. The list that we have at the moment is very incomplete. So, for example, there is a good case for saying, well, there's lots of other compounds that you cannot make in the body, you can only obtain from the diet, and are clearly essential for your long-term health. And that would include the polyphenols as a group, and you need to break that down into subgroups. It includes the carotenoids, some of them. It includes xanthophylls. It includes methyl group donors, cyanogens. The list goes on and on and on. So Extend is not a multivitamin. It's not even a multivitamin / multi-mineral product, or what some people call trace elements. That's just the foundation. That's the ground floor of the product. Onto that, we have built another layer, which contains what we think of as all of the essential phytonutrients. So you have a very diverse group of polyphenols, which have been designed specifically to provide cover in different tissues and in different bodily compartments. We had an interesting group of carotenoids and xanthophylls. So, for example, not just beta carotene, but also alpha carotene, because that has quite distinct properties. We use vitamin E, but not just D-alpha tocopherol, which most people use because it's cheap. There are actually 8 different forms of vitamin E, and the people who are specialists in vitamin E, and I'm not one, tell me that, well, at least they work together like a chamber orchestra. They're all doing slightly different, slightly complementary things, and some of them have very different pharmacological properties than D-alpha. So we, just to make sure, we've put them all in. And then on top of all of that, and wait, there's more, and that more element would be the 1316 beta glucans, and these are cell wall components from certain types of microbes, specifically molds and yeasts. And we take ours from Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is the yeast you use to make beer or use to make bread. And we used to consume a lot of this because it used to be almost everywhere in our foods, in our environment. Then we stripped it all out. And that was a bad move, turns out, because you need these beta glucans in order for the innate immune system to work properly. Without the beta glucans, you become less able to ward off infection. You become more prone to allergy. And a lot of money, a lot of research has been invested in this one molecule. When I chaired one of the scientific advisory boards at Biothera, which is the company that did a great deal of the early research, we were given $100 million by the American government, by the NIH, because the research was considered so important. It turns out that by putting these back into your diet, your immune cells become much more able to move much more quickly to the site of an infection. And when they get there, they are much more aggressive in terms of destroying the microbes. You become more resistant to infection. And because the immune system is now working in the way that it should, you are much less likely to develop an allergy. And if you already have an allergy, that allergy will become much less significant. So this is a hugely important molecule. So I thought we need to put that in there too. And there's a couple of other things that we're going to add as well in the next iteration of Extend, because it keeps on changing and upgrading as the science develops. The next edition is going to blow your socks off. If you wear socks, Carla. I don't know if you wear socks in Minnesota.
I wear socks. I'm in Minnesota, Dr. Paul, so we're going to be wearing
Okay.
socks. But you can blow them off because I know that every time you're coming up with things, it's because It's only because it's the science that's showing it, because I've had people say, why don't you use this? And you're saying the science isn't quite there yet. And when the science shows it, then you're gonna make it so that we always have what's the cutting edge in regards to extend.
Well, I really only have control over the health protocol. I have some influence over some of the other things that Enzino has been acquiring. But as far as I'm concerned, whatever I do has to be science-based. If you were to cut me in half, you'd find the word science written all the way through me like a stick of seaside rock. It's everything I believe in.
We're gonna cut you in half and see how many rings you have and see how old you are, Dr. Paul.
Okay. You see that picture behind me? That's me.
I do. That's what got my thinking. We're gonna check it out. Okay, so so if we look at just our health protocol now that we've been talking about, we've got the balance oil. People have to stop calling it an omega-3 product. They have to stop doing that because it's so much more. It's really getting people into balance. They need to stop calling our prebiotic because it's just not like anything else out there. When you formulated that, it has all the different prebiotics in it, and I don't think there's another. Have you ever seen anything even close to what the xenobiotic is? Nobody that I've met in the 13 years I've been in has seen anything like what you have formulated with our xenobiotic. Have you seen anything close?
Not really, although, imitation is, the most sincere form of flattery. I'm starting to see small companies launching similar products because they've seen how effective ours is. So we're going to see more copies. It was basically a kind of a light bulb moment, and I realized, well, hang on, these different fibers have different fermentation rates, therefore they work at different points in the gut. And some fibers have a low therapeutic index, so if you take too much of them, you'll blow up. It's going to be really uncomfortable. Others you can tolerate more of, and I did some calculations based on the fiber complexity, fermentation rates, and the rate that they travel through the gut. And we came up with xenobiotic. Oh, I had one other criterion. I wanted to make sure it tasted good. Because you might have something that works, but if you're eating tablespoons of it and it doesn't taste good, no one's going to do it for very long. So I had to make it taste, somewhat pleasant. And taking all those things into consideration, we came up with xenobiotic. I think it's the best in breed by a long way. But that's not the final version. I'm working on a new version now, which will also include a new fiber, which is called hemicellulose. Now, you might think that humans can't digest cellulose and the human microbiota cannot ferment cellulose. You'd be right, because otherwise we could eat newsprint for dinner, which I don't think is generally a good idea. But we can digest hemicellulose. Well, no, strike that. We can't digest it, but there are certain bacteria in the gut called keystone species, which can break down and ferment these hemicellulose fibers. They're called keystone species because what they do has a huge impact on many other elements of the microbial population, and we have ignored them a little bit. Some Bacteroides count here. Prevotella does, Saccharomyces mucinifera, a few other species. And we're now going to start paying attention to them as well and putting just a little sprinkle of hemicellulose into one of the next versions of xenobiotic. And I think it's going to start working even better.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Well, I know that the health protocol has made so many people have life-changing experiences, so many stories from that because those three products work together. And I loved how you called it like a symphony. If you're listening to music, it's a big difference if you take out the whole brass section or the percussion, and so you need to have it all, and they really are meant to be working together. Correct?
Well, and they did in the traditional diet. It's just that we've gone so far astray. We have been seduced into eating this industrial, ultra-processed diet. We've been deliberately seduced by food companies that don't want to sell us produce. They want to sell us value-added products. And they deliberately set out to make them hyper-palatable, or you might, in another word, addictive. So we end up eating too many of these foods.
So if it is our diet, could we then eat our way to the health protocol? So that we
Yes.
wouldn't eat it, we could eat it completely and
Yes, absolutely. But you'd have to
okay,
be more physically active because the vestigial cultures that eat those compounds in a natural diet, they're not filling themselves up with empty calories in Coca-Cola, some sugar-sweetened beverages or ice creams or things like that. And they're more active. They're consuming more calories. And the foods that they're eating, they're not ultra processed. They're calorie light and nutrient dense. So they can do it. We're only living at about 2,000 kilocalories a day. A lot of those calories are empty, sugars, starches, plant oils, which are. So it's very difficult for us to reconstruct a modern diet which would fit a white collar desk worker and give you everything you needed in 2,000 calories. Now, I've written a book about, or a chapter in a book about this, and we worked out, my colleagues and I, that in order to get everything you need through food, you could do it, but it would be a very strange diet, and the minimum number of calories would be about 2,500 to 3,000 calories. And you'd have to be eating liver and oysters and wheat bran and Brazil nuts, and you wouldn't. It wouldn't be. It would be an expensive diet and one that most people wouldn't enjoy.
okay, but people could do that, but it
Yeah,
sure is a lot easier taking about 30 seconds and taking the entire health protocol every day.
yeah, yeah. It's a biohack, and and I think it's probably the
I
most
like that, biohack.
important.
I'll put that
Yeah,
down.
I think it's, to me, from where I'm sitting, it seems like the most important biohack that there is right now.
Hmm. Okay, so taking this, there's a lot of lifestyle diseases out there, Dr. Paul, that like I've said, there's been so many incredible stories, but one of the things I'm actually almost more excited about are the stories we probably won't hear. Because we have talked to people about the health protocol and now they're not going to have these different lifestyle diseases. Uh, there's things that are just, they're calling them epidemics now with all of the different autoimmunes and
Mhm.
uh, people are super sick. And so many people that are, they don't realize that they have things going on because they're just thinking this is normal aging.
Yeah.
But
People think it's normal as you get older for you to have less energy, for your blood pressure to go up, for your BMI to start going up, to start developing creaky joints and heart disease and cancer, and you start to dement. Well, that's normal aging. No, it isn't. These are all signs not of chronological aging at all. They're actually signs of chronic intoxication. That is your modern diet and lifestyle that is incrementally damaging you year by year, decade by decade, until you develop the symptoms of one of these lifestyle conditions. They
mm,
are largely avoidable. And we see this, we know this because of studies that have been done in the blue zones, where people do not age in the way that we do at all. They tend to remain pretty vibrant, well, at least in some blue zones they do, until really very close to the end.
so we're creating our own blue zone.
I think when you start using the health protocol, you become your own blue zone.
I love that. I love that. Okay. So let's move on to the next product, which is something that I've made a few jokes about, and I know the American office has made a few jokes about. Mike Perry says we have our Carla stash because we're not going to run out because Carla needs her Viva. So let's talk about Viva when you put on the four
Carla, you
products.
have become so much nicer since you started dating Beva.
Everybody in the room laughing too. But those who know me probably know it's probably true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. But when you add that Viva to our health protocol, we're calling it the health protocol premium. And I kind of call it the Rolls Royce of nutrition, because if people really do want the best, I mean, you can get from one end to another on any car, but if you really want a fancy car, you want the best car, you want the best nutrition, you do want to take the health protocol premium, and that's adding that Viva. So there's a lot of people who are wondering, do they really need it? Or, is it really going to do anything? So let's talk about Viva and what is it and why is that so important for some?
Well, Viva has
Why
got a
does it make
great,
some people happier? Why does it make some people more pleasant, as you say, Dr. Paul?
Viva has a great backstory. And there's nothing new to it at all. Really, there's nothing new about anything we're doing. Really, it's just old folk wisdom, and it's old. It's how the way we used to live. All we're doing is we're investigating the nutritional wisdom of our great grandparents, and we're passing that through a filter of modern science. And now we can begin to see why they had so much better health. And that means we know what we have to do in order to gain that same extremely good health. So Viva is no exception to that. I mean, the first mention of Viva as a treatment for affective symptoms, anxiety, depression, things like that, is about 1,000 years ago. And it's written about by Avicenna, or Ibn Sina, to give him his correct name. He was a Persian polymath and an amazing man, amazing scientist. He was an astronomer, a mathematician, and a doctor. And he wrote two medical textbooks, the Canons of Medicine, in the 9th and 10th century. And they were still used, I think, in parts of Spain, in Spanish universities 500 years later. I mean, that's a pretty good run, right? And if you look through his textbooks, you'll see that he uses saffron to treat conditions that we would now describe as anxiety and depression. So fast forward 1,000 years, and a group of scientists in Iran, which is modern day Persia, wonderful country, they started looking at their traditional medicine, thinking, well, could there be something here? And they developed saffron extracts, and they ran it through a whole bunch of clinical trials. And by golly, it's as effective as an SSRI in alleviating depression, but it doesn't leave you spiritually, it doesn't kill your soul while you take it, which the SSRIs seem to do. And it's as effective as a tranquilizer or an anxiolytic as anything the pharmaceutical industry can give you now, but without being addictive. So this is a really interesting natural compound. And it turns out a lot of good science has been done. And I did a study myself with an Australian research group. And we found it was extremely effective. A lot of work has been done into the neurochemistry. What does it do in the brain? It's unlike the antidepressants, because they will take 2, sometimes 4 weeks to have an effect. Viva works within the first couple of hours. So it's a different mechanism of action. It's better than an SSRI, but it's not working like one, right? So some work has shown that it doesn't really work on serotonin, which is probably not the best way to go anyway. It's working on a couple of other neurotransmitters, GABA and glutamine, in a totally different part of the brain, in the ventral tegmental area of the hypothalamus. And that's an area where your pleasure and pain centers are operating, and a lot of other things besides, and it seems to rebalance them. Again, we come back to balance. Everything we do seems to be about balance. And when you get the neurochemistry in that part of your brain right, a lot of good things start to happen. You become less anxious. You become less depressed. Your hypothalamus begins to become a rich source of new nerve cells. The hippocampus is one of the parts of the brain where you're continually growing new neurons, and they repopulate, they innovate the brain, repopulate it. If you eat a terrible diet and the hippocampus starts to break up, which it does in the West, you're unable to produce new neurons, new brain cells, and you have a high risk of becoming demented. By keeping the hypothalamus healthy, and Viva seems to do that in the long haul, I believe it will prove to be very protective against the neurodegenerative diseases. But in the short term, for those of us who suffer from anxiety and depression, it's really an amazingly effective treatment for both of those conditions without any downside. No nausea, no toxicity, no desire to go and shoot up your local post office or school. It just,
Well,
I mean,
people say that, Dr. Paul, they're saying, somebody said, well, I'm disappointed in this because I don't see the list of side effects. Why isn't it giving me the list of side? And it's like, well, I guess that person's used to the pharmaceuticals.
You know, there's this idea that if a drug doesn't have an extensive list of side effects, it can't be effective. Well, that's true when it comes to synthetic molecules that the body is unfamiliar with. And the reason is the concept of the pharmaceutical medicine is specificity. We'll try and target just one receptor, one enzyme, one isoform of an enzyme, or a stretch of DNA. The types of diseases that we're dealing with are not susceptible to that treatment. The specificity model, which the pharmaceutical industry is wed to, because that's where they get their money from, simply doesn't work. That's why, even after all this research, all this investment, we have no cures for anything except really the antibiotics. So, yeah, the drugs that we use are foreign. The body's not familiar with them. They cause terrible range of side effects. Iatrogenic illness caused by medical intervention, is one of the leading causes of death. We kill a lot of patients.
Mhm.
If you use natural compounds, well, the body is extremely used to them. It's co-evolved with them for millennia. Our body knows how to deal with these compounds. Instead of trying to, using pharmaceuticals is like trying to cure a Swiss watch with a sledgehammer. The workings of a body are far more complicated than a Swiss watch. What we're trying to do is we're trying to put some of the building blocks back in place to allow the body to heal itself. And Viva has to be seen. It can only be understood in that kind of a context.
So what I have seen is that it helps sleep-wise, it helps for
Yep,
mood-wise or
yep,
stress-wise, but
yep.
it's different for everybody. Like some people take it in the morning to have a pick-me-up, and some people take it in the morning to calm down. Now, why is it that it's different effects?
Well, very simple, because people respond differently to stress. Whether that stress is a bad job, a bad relationship, incompetent political leadership, oh, I've already said too much, then some people, and that's not a partisan political point. Let me just say, you know, I pox on all politicians. My feeling is that people respond to stress. Some people get very hyper. They can't sleep. They're worried. Other people get listless. They lose their energy. So by alleviating this machinery in the hypothalamus, where all of this is being processed, you start moving back towards normality. So if you're an agitated depressive, it's going to make you happier. It's going to calm you down. If you're someone who gets stressed and then withdraws, and then becomes comatose because you're losing all your energy, it's going to help you to get that energy back. Find out which depending on your profile, you will then have to work out what is the best way to take this. And most people work it out pretty quickly.
Okay, because I've also heard, like, to show that it was safe. Because a lot of people worry, if it's just something that works like a sleep aid, you have to watch out because there's a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
side effects there. Yeah. So they get worried about things like that, but you wanted to prove that it was safe, and
Yes, I did. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna let you tell what you did to prove it was safe.
okay,
You
well,
took the
I've been
entire
telling
box. Okay, we make it fast. You took the entire box yourself just to
you
prove it
ruined
was.
my story. You ruined my story.
No.
The
Okay,
way
you
the
tell
way
it.
it happened. Well, Doug, who I have a lot of time for, I respect him. I really do. And I consider him a friend, but he's really boneheaded. He always thinks he knows best. So I brought Viva to him. I bought the active ingredient to him. And for 2 years, he said, oh no, this is not for Zinzino. I mean, I can't even imagine what he was thinking or not thinking. And I think maybe one of the problems he had was, well, if it's so effective, maybe there's a problem here. Maybe there's a safety issue. So I marched into his office and I emptied a pack of Viva, and I said, Doc, I've got 60 Viva tablets here and I have a glass of water. Watch this. And I just knocked the whole thing back, and he sat there watching me thinking, oh my God, this lunatic. I'm sure that's what he was thinking. And he was probably in his mind saying, how quickly can I get the medics here? But basically, nothing happened. I knew nothing was going to happen. This is basically all that happened was for the next day, I smelled like paella.
So for the next day, you slept like a baby.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying everyone should do this. I don't recommend it. And you can harm yourself if you take really huge amounts of saffron. You
But you took
absolutely can.
60 and you took 60 and you were good. Oh,
Oh, I
and
mean,
you,
I was fine. I was
'cause-
fine, but I think for pregnant women shouldn't definitely not do that, and it's just it's a waste of money anyway. Because if you don't respond to two or maybe four or maybe six tablets, adding more is not going to be helpful.
well, actually, I don't know about that because I have found a sweet spot for me because I do travel a lot. So when I am feeling that jet lag and I know it's time for bed, right around dinner time, I take 8. It's just my
Eight.
number. I take 8. And that
Uh,
helps me. It's like my whole body knows time for bed. And then it goes to sleep and I sleep like a baby. And I do, it
eight
doesn't matter
tablets.
which direction. 8, I do. I don't know why 8. I've just worked it up and said, okay, what number is it? And 8 always works.
Carla, you are so hardcore.
I need it. My body needs this, Viva. I
Hmm.
don't know. Okay, so it is also something people have used for stress. I know we've heard so many people call it happy pills. We've had it even for children. So maybe we
Yep,
should
yep,
just
yep.
touch in on it's safe for kids and kids can
Yes,
take
it's
it.
safe for kids. Yeah, clinical studies have been done. It's safe for kids, and I'll answer a couple of questions in the chat. Is it safe to take if patients are on antidepressants or tranquilizers? The answer is yes. In fact, it will reduce the adverse effects of antidepressants, and that's been studied as well. Will it help with brain fog? Kind of depends on what caused the brain fog. Um, if it's long COVID or the after effects of those utterly pernicious and foolish RNA um, vaccines. I'm not sure that it will. If it's that kind of brain fog, what I would recommend is go to the FLCCC. You can find them on the internet, and they are a group of specialists who have done a great deal of work in helping people with the long-term effects of COVID infection or the mRNA shots.
Okay, well, maybe we should talk about some of those things because I did have a question here. Now they are talking about ivermectin that is now prescribed for humans. And
Okay, can I quickly answer some more questions coming up
oh,
here?
yeah, you go ahead.
From yes, from
Go back
Margot
to that one.
Behar. Is the potassium iodine natural? Because I have a naturopath who claims this form of iodine would not be natural. Newsflash: all iodine is natural. We can't make it. It was made at the beginning of time. All iodine is natural. There's no such thing as synthetic iodine. Next.
Okay, if we find more, I'll grab those questions too. But what about
Mhm.
ivermectin? What do you think of ivermectin? Somebody asked that.
I think it's actually a very safe and a very useful compound.
Hmm.
Yes, it's a horse dewormer, horse paste, and all that, and of course the medical authorities tried to write it off as being something that is good for horses and not for humans. In fact, I think it's probably one of the most useful drugs in the portfolio. It
Hmm.
has a whole range of very interesting effects on the immune system. It clearly has anti-cancer effects as well.
Hmm.
And it's something that I think I'm not saying that everybody needs to use it, but if you live in certain parts of the world, it's quite likely that at some point or another, you will pick up various parasites. And ivermectin, and of course mebendazole, and they make a nice combination, are a fairly effective anti-parasitic cleanse. It might be useful for people living in the tropics, for
I
example,
like
to consider using on a semi-regular basis.
Okay, well, I just wanted to ask that quick, and I know we want to get to serum before, because I can see questions are flooding in. So we've got some minutes here, but we want to make sure we get into serum. Now, we've talked about our balance, or our health protocol premium, that's balance oil, the xenobiotic, the extend, and the Viva. And by the way, I just thought it was really neat that they put Viva, which means life. So I think it's really good because so many people have said it gives me my life back. It's such
Hey,
a good title for it.
can I toot my own horn here? I gave it that
You,
name.
you did
We, we,
it. Perfect. We like
we-
it. I
we
like
had
the name.
this think tank session. We had this think tank session, and we were all racking our brains. And I said, "Let's call it Viva." And so Viva was born.
Viva was born. Well, love it. Absolutely love it. Okay, so skin serum. Um, you know, it has actually won awards for being absolutely incredible skin serum. Which awards are you most proud of or that you know of? You're
You
kind
know,
of
the
quiet.
thing I'm proud of, the thing I love the science. I mean, I eat, drink, and breathe, and sleep it, and I'm going to be bringing other products to Zinzino and improved versions of the ones we have.
Oh, well, we want to hear all
It-
about all of them.
well,
I I know. I'm not gonna dig into those. We'll hear
yeah,
about them when you're ready for them. So let's talk skin serum. There's a science behind the skin serum of why it works. Maybe I'll quick say my way of how I hear it, and then you can fix it. So I've
sure.
heard it. It's like there's things in there that when you get a cut, and if your skin is cut, you've got stuff that goes up and says, "Oh, we need to heal that," and that kind of stuff is what you've put in the skin serum. So that's what's creating us feeling so great. Because I mean, I'll take all the products, I take the entire premium health protocol. I also take the Viva, I also take collagen. I like all of it, but I also do feel like I've gotten 10 years younger in the last 10 years. So let's tell me about the science of the skin serum.
Well, I got to say, Carla, I don't know if Chinese trying to what do they say in America? Blow smoke up your skirts? That's a weird idea. I don't know where that comes from. But you do look younger than the first time I saw you, which is 10 years ago. So yeah, clearly this has had a significant, effect.
But
Yeah,
and the anti-aging industry is a multi-billion dollar industry. And now, I mean, I was just telling the story here of when I was running around after my grandkids and people stop me and go, "Wait a minute, did they just call you grandma? You're not like a grandma." Because I have the energy to run and jump and do all kinds of stuff, right? So
mhm.
you're healing yourself from the inside out. It makes sense that if you have healthy cells, healthy body. So I absolutely love all of the products. But I also love the skin serum. Um, but you have a science behind it when you were formulating it.
Oh, a lot. It really starts at the extracellular the extracellular matrix. A lot of cosmetics, they're really just working at the surface, and that's like covering up a crumbling old wall by covering it with a coat of paint, and it doesn't really prevent the wall from further weathering. That's really how aging happens. What you have to do is to rebuild the very basic structural elements of the wall itself. In humans, those structural elements, that is called the extracellular membrane, and it's this very complex three-dimensional web or matrix of microfibers that runs through every cubic micrometer of your body, holding all your soft tissues together. So there's collagen as a part of it. There's 12 different collagens, but there's another over 200 other different fiber types. This is very, very complicated. And what happens is that this matrix is continually being broken down and rebuilt. And if it's being broken down and rebuilt at the same rate, the matrix doesn't really change very much overall. And it's the strength and the depth of the matrix that determines the elasticity, the tensile strength, the hydration capacity of your skin. That's what holds all your skin cells together. Because of the way in which we live, the rate of the breakdown of the matrix in the skin is much faster than the rate of your ability to repair it. So over time, the matrix becomes thinned out, it becomes disrepaired, there's less of it, and the skin slowly, year by year, becomes thinner, more fragile, more wrinkled, less elastic, less hydrated. That's what aging of skin actually is. So I decided to develop a multiple approach to this. And on the one hand, I introduced a group of compounds which slow down the breakdown of the matrix and protect it from oxidative stress, from UV, from glycative stress, all the other stresses that degrade the matrix. And on the other hand, I put in a bunch of compounds that tell the fibroblasts make more matrix. So now, instead of losing 10 units a day and only replacing 5, which means you lose 5 a day, so you age slowly. Now you're only losing 5 units a day and replacing 10. And the matrix starts to build again. You're reversing aging in a very profound way. The skin becomes thicker, it becomes stronger, more elastic, because there's more matrix, it's better hydrated. Yeah, you put aging into reverse. It's like the portrait of Dorian Gray in a tube. And it's doing other things as well, because I put some compounds in there which improve the skin's immune system, which modify or modulate the activity of a group of cells called Langerhans cells. These are a very specific population, a sedentary population of immune cells. Unlike neutrophils, macrophages, NK cells, which roam around the body, this is a group of immune cells which sit in the skin to defend you against insults or invasions from the external world. And because of the modern exposome, the modern diet and lifestyle, this particular group of cells is not at its best. So I put some compounds into the serum which wake them up and tell them to behave. With most people, as you get older, the skin not only deteriorates in appearance, it also becomes its immunity, its immune functions become less. And so what I decided was we don't only want to make the skin look better, we want to restore its immunological functions as well. And so I put these other compounds into the serum, which, as I said, wake up the immune system and again reverse the aging process. So this is a very, very complex approach to the different aspects of aging as it affects the skin. And that's other people who picked up on that. We didn't put in, fancy colors or scents or anything like that. Well, it smells a little weird, but that's the smell of the actives. So it's a bare bones approach, but all the essential elements are there. And that's the reason why it's been picked up in a couple of places and put at the top of the beauty products league table, even though, over products which cost 100 times more, like La Prairie and those sorts of things. So I'm
So
very proud of that.
it has one different, like, it's at the top of the list of a lot of things. And
You'll see it in some odd places, yes. The people who get it, I mean, really do get it and they love it.
okay, well, we love that skin serum. I know I do. I said it's a little bit, I'd bathe in it if I could. It takes a long time to fill the bathtub if we're gonna get it going. But we love that skin serum. Okay, there's a lot of questions here and we've got about 12 minutes to answer some of these. So I'm gonna start at the top here. Some endocrinologists don't recommend Viva with patients that have thyroid problems. What would you say?
I would say I understand their caution. If you have certain types of thyroid problems, you do have to be cautious about iodine intakes. If you have, hot spots, nodules in the thyroid, it's probably a good idea to be cautious about iodine. The good news, however, is that the amount of iodine in Viva is actually very low. So if your endocrinologist, if your thyroid specialist is very strict, I would say go along with them. I think if you look around, you can find on the internet saffron extracts which do not contain iodine, and that might be a better bet for you.
Okay. Is balance oil okay for those with AFib?
Is balance oil okay for when?
Those with AFib, afibrillation.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, eating oily fish does not create AFib or make it worse. AFib is caused by poorly formulated fish oils, which do not contain polyphenols and therefore oxidize in the body to form these very toxic breakdown products, which are arrhythmogenic. They cause arrhythmia. Balance oil doesn't do that.
So a lot of people might answer their own questions. If they can eat fish, they would be able to take it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
And if you have a fish allergy and can't eat fish, you can still take balance oil because the allergy to fish is to fish protein. There's no protein in balance oil.
Good to know. Okay, there's a lot of people that have issues like Hashimoto's. Is it safe? Is it the iodine again?
My answer would be the same as before. Talk to your specialist and tell them what the dose of iodine is. It's very low. If they say that's okay, then proceed. If they say, well, I'm a little bit nervous about this, I don't want you to eat any iodine at all, then fine, go and find a saffron extract out there on the market which is not combined with iodine. I don't think it'll be necessarily quite as effective, but it'll still have some impact.
Mm. Okay, when is it best to take balance oil or the products? Do we take them all together of the day? When is it best and why?
Okay, as regard to timing, take extend with meals because when you eat, as soon as you smell or taste food, and the act of chewing itself wakes up the intestine, makes it better able to absorb micronutrients. When it comes to xenobiotic, it doesn't really matter what time you take it. You don't digest it anyway. It passes through the small intestine, and it's the bacteria in your gut that are going to be utilizing it. When it comes to balance oil, there is a timing issue. Do not take it uh, too close to a period of intense physical activity. So, if you're going to go for a run in the morning, take your balance oil at night. If you're going to go to the gym in the evening, take your balance oil in the morning. And the reason for that is if you take balance oil and it's floating around in the blood, hasn't yet been incorporated in your tissues, and you then get involved in intense exercise, your body will say, here's some lipids, I can burn them for energy. And you'll burn them, use them as fuel, rather than integrating them as structural components into your cell membranes, where you need to have them to get the anti-inflammatory effect.
I've heard you say something in regards to the extend is you don't need to take them all four at the same time. Now, some of us have trouble remembering the rest of the day, so we take all four in the morning. Or do you recommend, I've heard you say 2 in the morning, 2 for lunch, 2 for dinner with food?
Well, that would be 6. I mean, 4 days
2
the
in the
right amount.
morning, 1 with lunch and 1 with dinner, that's still 4. 2 in the morning, 1 and 1.
Yeah, but you said 2, 2, and 2.
Oh,
I'm
well, okay.
I'm
Well,
not going to let you get away with that. Look, I'm a scientist. I'm a stickler for facts and numbers. It's really important. Yeah, I mean, always
those
take this
numbers are
extended
important.
food, but the actives in extend do work a little better, but are more effective if you spread it out a bit. So 2 for breakfast and 1 for lunch, 1 with dinner. Yeah, that works. That's what I do.
Okay, that's what you do. We're gonna follow what you do. Next time we talk, I'll have switched my ways around here. Okay. Somebody's asking, once a person does get in balance, should they take a break with it or should they be continuing always to take balance oil?
Well, if you take a break, then what will happen is all that will happen is your blood levels, your blood values will go back to where they were before you started taking the balance oil. Then you will re-enter the risk zone. So it's up to you. It's a personal choice. But I mean, I would say stay with it. The benefits will be sustained and they'll be greater. If you come off it, things will start to go wrong again.
I got it. Okay, somebody's saying, why is it some people are gaining weight by taking balance oil? Now, I've also heard others losing weight, but why are some also gaining weight?
Well, they're not gaining weight because of the balance oil, because there's not that many calories. People are gaining weight because we live in what is known as an obesogenic environment. We don't take enough physical exercise. We're surrounded by hyper-palatable, calorie-dense foods. It's very difficult not to put on weight. But I don't think it's the balance oil.
Okay, well, I've had somebody saying here that they have many patients experience gastric reflux symptoms after taking the balance oil. Do you have
Yep,
any?
that can happen. Yeah, if that happens, it's probably, I mean, it's generally people who have a history of gastric reflux. And there's all kinds of reasons for that. Gastric reflux is more likely to occur if, as you get older, it's more likely to occur if you're overweight, and more likely to occur at night when you're lying down. And the contents of the stomach can pass more easily uh, into the esophagus than they can if they're held in place by gravity. And in some people, it'll be triggered by certain foods, which is, I think, perhaps a kind of an intolerance response. If you're in that category, and if balance oil is triggering reflux, then I think the easiest solution is to switch to Aqua X, and that's pre-emulsified. And so, rather than staying in the stomach, it moves more quickly through the stomach and is less likely to cause this problem. The other
Okay.
thing you can do, of course, is to take balance oil and then use one of the gastric raft technologies. So these are alginates, which are used typically as antacids. So you can take one or two of these tablets, and what they do is the alginate compounds in them, they absorb fluids in the stomach and they swell and they sit like a foam on top of the gastric contents and make it much less likely for you to experience reflux. And it's important to minimize reflux because the more reflux you have, the more you are at risk of developing esophagitis, inflammation of the esophagus, moving, if you really have a lot of reflux, towards Barrett's esophagus and eventually to a cancer of the esophagus. So we want to avoid that if we can.
Okay. I can see that with our last 5 minutes, we're not going to get through all of the questions that we have, but I am going to just go until the next 4.5 minutes are done. The serum, can it be used for skin issues also? For people that have skin issues like, the psoriasis or any of that, is it okay to be using?
Yes, absolutely. And also for burns, also for sunburn. It's very helpful.
Okay, somebody, Mike, hi, Mike, asked, you mentioned the HALE study or HALE study in your book, Let Your Food Be Your Pharmaconutrition. What is the significance of that study?
Gosh, I write so much. I do remember writing about the HALE study. I'm just trying to remember in which regard. Who is the person who asked the question?
Mike, he's one of the partners here in Minnesota.
Hey, Mike in Minnesota, can you come online and tell me what exactly did I say about the HALE study that you're registering?
I'll come back to that, Mike. You write it down in the chat. I'll come back to you.
Yeah, because
what
HALE it was a fairly major trial, and a lot of information came out of that. I can't remember offhand what exactly I was saying about
That's
it.
okay. If we don't get to it, I will get the answer from you later and I'll send it to him. So what do you recommend when people have already do have cancer?
Okay, now we're getting into the management
I
of
know. I
very
was kind
serious
of thinking we
diseases
might
as
not
well.
want to do some of these where they are asking specific things here. So maybe that's
Okay,
okay.
if I were to make a statement about this and say that I believe that it is possible to reduce the risk of cancer and reduce progression and induce regression, at that point we come into very dangerous territory indeed, which would result in us being shut down. And I don't really want to talk about that in a public forum.
And I
However,
think
for those who are
let
interested, I have published in this area. And if you do a search of the medical literature using my name, and the title of the paper was what was it? I think Back to the Future. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to quickly see if I can find it.
well, that's okay because
Steve,
we've only
where is it?
got
I'll
two
see if I
minutes.
can.
We've got 2 minutes, Dr. Paul. So I will if we
Okay,
find
but
it, I can find
it was co-written. My co-author was the head of oncology at the Mayo Clinic, probably the
okay.
most senior cancer researcher in the whole world. And in that paper, I described a program which would reconfigure your body in a way that would be extremely hostile to cancer. And this guy, Asha Chandrakan, was sufficiently persuaded by my logic to add his name to my paper.
I love it. Somebody is asking, is xenobiotic lose its potential if you drink it with hot beverages, tea and coffee?
Nope. No,
Nope.
it doesn't lose its potential, and it's so thermally stable, you can bake it into biscuits or bread if you so wish. It still works.
Baking it. I've done that with cookies with the grandkids. Okay. I think we are down to that last minute, so we need to be done. I think I can see some.
Oh, here we
We're
do it.
good.
Yeah. How it lowered all disease by 60%. This is the thing from Mike. The HALE study was in general. It was a study which focused on, gosh, the things that the various things you could do to affect the rate of aging. There have been subsequent studies which have looked at the same kind of question. So HALE is not there on its own, but it was to study what might affect usual and unhealthy and healthy aging, which are the dietary habits and lifestyle habits that would affect that. There's an awful lot of work in this area, and HALE is just one of several studies. So I think the figure you mentioned of 60% might be a little on the high side. maybe they're talking about an increase of 60% in those people who arrived at the age of 70 or 80 and still in good health, something like that.
Okay, perfect. Well, Dr. Paul, our time has come to an end here for this business planning session with the training and all of the products. And I can tell you, it's always fun just to listen to you and have fun listening to you. And it's fun to see the fun side too. But we are so grateful for the work that you do with Enzino. Our health protocol is something absolutely everyone needs. It's a global health issue, and this is doing something about it. Enzino is leading the way in proving that they can do and make a difference in this global health issue. And I absolutely love that you are constantly working to make sure that it is cutting edge and has the best of the best at all times. So thank you, Dr. Paul, for your time. And thank everybody who joined in here. I appreciate all of you, and thanks for all the questions. And we'll have to do this again sometime.